Hello, everyone. I am so excited. We have got Dr. Julie Smith, who is at this very moment the #1 Sunday Times best-selling author, joining me today to talk about her fantastic book. And there you are, Julie, so speedy. God, how nice to meet you. I love your book. I really want to congratulate you and jump up and down with you for being #1 Audible and Sunday Times bestseller.
I'm in an absolute shock, honestly. Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind sort of couple of weeks, really. So I'm kind of stunned. I'm not sure really what to feel or what to do, but yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great because the whole idea was to get all this stuff out there and make it available. So that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, I'm really honoured that when you're so kind of busy and in demand that you've joined me. So I'm so pleased. And I mean, you say very clearly that this is not therapy skills, but this is life skills, and that it's a toolbox for life's up and downs. And, I've read it, and you're absolutely right. We should have this as our basic kind of understanding of how to manage our emotions, our motivation, our mood, what gives our life meaning. But I first of all, do you want to, I'm banging on too much. Do you want to kind of introduce us to yourself and the book? And
Yeah, sure.
Followers, do please ask questions and I'll read them out.
Yeah, please do. And can I just say it as well? I know we've been trying to do a live together for so long, haven't we? And I, for various reasons, when I was writing and then I had homeschooling, and we just haven't managed to do it for ages, have we? So it's such an honor, honestly. I am an absolute fan of yours, and I have a beaten old book of yours here, and it's so beaten up is because it's so well read. I just keep going back to it and recommending it all the time, and because I just feel like you are sort of my go-to expert when it comes to grief. I just really, and I sort of included the things about your pillars of strength.
You did. I'm in your book. I was so chuffed.
Yeah, because I just feel that it's so important, and I would always talk to clients about those sorts of things. It's just, it's the most helpful stuff I've come across when it comes to grief, both therapeutically, but also personally, and I've encountered, grief of my own in the last couple of years, sort of losing grandparents and things. And this is the stuff I come back to. So, yeah, super grateful for all of your works as well.
Well, mutual respect. And I was very pleased. And I mean, I think as much as with my work about grief, all of these things, the more people can understand what's going on in them, the more choices they have about how they respond to them. And then their outcomes change. I mean, that is the big thing, but you've done it so brilliantly. So tell us about
Yes.
you and your book and what you wanted from it.
So, yeah, when we're saying about the sort of education side, I think some of the most valuable education you can have is learning about how your own mind works and how human beings work, so that you can use that to your advantage and live well. And that's all any of us want to do, right? So yeah, that's where, and the title for the book, it kind of seems strange, but it really came out of the reason I went onto social media in the first place. So beforehand, I keep saying this to people, I was one of those sorts of people that would miss out on invitations because everyone was putting them on Facebook, and I never checked my Facebook, and that sort of, I wasn't a sort of skilled user of social media. But when I was starting to do more private work once I had children, I found that lots of people that were coming through, once they had the educational part of therapy, they found that so empowering to then make changes in their own lives and understand that they had some power over how they were feeling and how they would manage and stuff. So
they weren't just a victim of these feelings and moods and events, that they had agency by choices that they made.
Exactly. And there was, the title was really an amalgamation of lots of variations of why on earth has nobody told me this before? This is not rocket science. It's really helping. And I think I'm all right now. I'm ready to go. I know it's going to be tough. I know life's going to throw things at me, but I know now that I've got this kind of toolbox to use and to face things with. So yeah, and that's where I kind of thought, well, I would sort of, you know, over dinner with my husband say, this should be more available to people. They shouldn't have to pay to come and see me to find this stuff out. And so he kind of told me to put my money where my mouth was and say, well, go and do it then, you know, make it available. And so then we started to make a few YouTube videos and stuff, and then discovered TikTok at the same time, which gave us this huge reach, to reach lots of people. And yeah, and then, but I guess lots of the messages that I get are people saying, yes, this is really useful. What about X, Y, and Z? What if this happens? Or what's the step-by-step for that? And it was all of these details that essentially you can't get into a 60-second video. You know, the short form video enables you to reach lots of people because you end up making it really engaging, but you can't get the detail of the how-tos in there. So that's what the book really became about, was for those people that wanted everything really, in a sort of really concise order as well. So I've split it into sort of problem sections, that things that we all face, you know, like troubles with motivation.
The most common.
Yeah, those sorts of, you know.
Shall I read them out? Shall I read them out?
Sure.
So it's on dark places, on motivation, on emotional pain, on grief, on self-doubt, on fear, on stress, and on a meaningful life. And those are the kind of big life stresses and or difficulties. And the thing I loved, actually, one of the things you said, which was so simple, was we were not made to be happy. We were made to survive and multiply, I guess. And that we're not wired, you know, we have a negative bias to look for danger. So what you're giving us is the tools to recognize, it isn't our absolute right to be happy all the time. There isn't something wrong with you if you're not happy all the time. But also that there are things that we can do that can make a difference to that. And that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think perhaps online, while social media has been fantastic for starting on this conversation about mental health, I think there's also a lot of content out there that's around, you know, only room for positivity, and you know, it's all about being happy. Yeah, that we have to kind of be positive and productive and motivated all of the time, and because humans aren't built that way, then as soon as we have a low day or a stressed day or an anxious day, we kind of feel like we're failing and we're not getting it right in the way, and then we assume other people must be getting it right. And that sends us in a sort of downward spiral and makes it much harder than it needs to be. So yeah, I think that's such an important message, and something that I really got from my training in acceptance and commitment therapy, which I find really, really helpful. If people are, you know, looking at researching different therapies to use or learn about, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, is really, really helpful for sort of thinking in that way. You know, being able to take on and allow negative emotion to be there, even when it's uncomfortable or excruciatingly painful, even, that when we allow it to take its natural course, that's what it does. And I love your ideas. It always stuck with me about the idea of, you know, with grief particularly, you can step into it and then you can step back out. And I always remember the metaphor used about the puddle, that, you know, with children and things, that you can step into it and you can be there and you can allow yourself to feel it, and then you can allow yourself some time out from it as well. And it's easier to take a break from it if you've allowed yourself to be there, you know, because you're not having to push against this whole thing. You've allowed some of it to take its natural course, and then you can take a breather. And it's not the end of it, because it comes back, right? But it's a healthier way to be processing it, rather than kind of be pushing the negativity, you know, stuff away, so that you're kind of trying to be super positive all the time.
And that's really useful. And people are kind of giving you tons of praise at how fantastic you are and how much your videos have helped them. And Amanda was saying that there's still so much shame attached to not being positive. But you talk about the kind of purpose, you know, so when I talk about jumping in and out of puddles, I think it's true for adults and children, that you can jump in and feel the pain of it, be sad, and jump out. Do you want to explain what the difference is between and allowing an emotion and then stepping away to blocking an emotion, the difference between cutting off and defending against it, and allowing it?
Yeah, so I guess different blocking behaviors might be things that demand our attention. So they might be things like, you know, binge watching some Netflix series, or it might be drinking alcohol or excessive
Or
eating.
eating lots of chocolate. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
or you know, staying super busy. You know, I work with lots of people where there's this real fear of stopping and resting, because then what will come up, and that, you know, if you get yourself up to your neck in a really busy career, then actually it can be pretty effective in the short term at keeping things at bay. But then people find sort of anxiety creeping up, all those sorts of things, and or sort of troubles sleeping and things like that that can really disturb that. And often do a kind of an exercise with people in therapy where I'll get like I usually use my clipboard or something, and I'll ask someone to put their hand, so I'll put my hand on one side of it and they put their hand on the other side, and we push against each other, and we do that until our arms hurt. And I'll say to people, you know, imagine now if I said, okay, end of the session, and then you go about the rest of your day, but I'm just going to be doing this all day, pushing this. And you know, if you let your guard down at any point because you're tired, then the book is going to come flying and hit you in the face. How do you think you're going to feel at the end of the day if I'm doing this all day? And so then we discussed that idea of, actually, if that is emotion and you're pushing that away, and you've got to use so much energy to keep it at bay, and you risk that the minute you let your guard down, it floods in and you feel overwhelmed. And then we kind of practice, okay, well, instead of having it up here, you kind of hold your hand out. I don't know if anyone can see this, and let it rest on your hand. And it's the same horrible feeling that you don't want to have, the same thoughts and emotions. But if you go about the rest of your day like that, it's much easier. And that's the sort of, I guess it's the physical way of showing that if you allow it to be there, it's still not, you still prefer it not to be there, but it's not here, and it's not blocking you from living the rest of your life. And when you choose to, when you're able to, you can look down at it, consider it, think it through, process it. But you're also free to look at the other things that, you know, really matter to you. So yeah, and it's, I know.
Can I just pause you to say this is your genius, that you take a real, you know, a concept of understanding that thousands of us therapists and psychologists kind of know, but you use such clever, simple, straightforward ways of showing the cost to us of blocking feelings that we can understand in a way that lots of sentences or telling someone doesn't. And does it just come to you, or do you take ages thinking about them? I mean, like, I want to know about making your films. You do a different film every day. Does it take up so much time? I'm imagining Matthew, your husband, films you. I mean, because they're so well done. Do you do masses in one lot, or how much kind of input does it take?
It's been huge. I mean, I'm absolutely standing on the shoulders of giants with things like this from therapy, because those would have been things that I would learn from training that have inevitably come from a brilliant brain somewhere else, but that we would use openly within therapy, but other people don't necessarily have access to. So, you know, I can't take credit for all of them coming out of my brain as such, but it's one way of kind of translating that. But a lot of the video ideas, my husband is the ideas man, so I would talk about some concept in psychology that could be very boring, and he would kind of say, well, how can we make this really exciting? What can we break? What can we explode? What can we, you know? And so it became a bit of a game as to how can we take this important idea and make it engaging, so that, because, you know, especially on a platform like TikTok where it's ruthless, people are there with their thumb ready to scroll on to the next video. If they're not engaged within 3 or 4 seconds, you're gone. So that became our kind of challenge, really, is how can we get this message across without people swiping on. So yeah, involved lots of breaking stuff and flooding things and, you know, water and fire, and but that was, it was definitely both of us, you know, amalgamating ideas, and lots of him saying, why not this, and me saying no way. And so yeah, we're a good kind of pair where he pushes the limits in and I kind of try to keep a lid on it a little bit. And because some of them would take a whole day. One video might take a day, but then another day you might be able to do 3 or 4 in a day, depending on, you know, how much of a mess they include, or in different takes and things like that. So yeah, it's really different.
They're really, really brilliant. And Miss Barefoot saying, I like how it makes it fun too. You take some of the kind of weight and heavy duty kind of seriousness out of it and make it so palatable that, you know, I get that. I can use that. And someone saying, hello from Saudi, I just received the book and I'm super excited about it.
Wow.
And Molly saying, I love the bloopers on those videos. I actually haven't seen the bloopers. Oh, is that the swearing?
There's different things where they've gone wrong, or, you know, it's been a sort of funny take that, you know, as you know, there've been mistakes and things like that. And I realized sort of a little way in that I wanted to be very clear about there's lots of misconceptions. If you're you probably get this too, that if you're a therapist or a psychologist, you must have this problem-free life because you've got it all sorted, right? And everything must be okay.
You say that in the introduction.
Yeah. I really didn't want to perpetuate that idea that just do what I do and then life is perfect, because it's not.
Yeah.
It still throws
just be me and my perfect life.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not true. And so no. I try to sort of I try to show the imperfect side to things. So some of the things I'll do, like Instagram versus reality and stuff, where, you know, you've got
I've seen those. That's brilliant.
Your sort of perfected video, and then something where I'm sort of, you know, giggling uncontrollably or falling off my stool or whatever, and just to show that, you know, we are all human, and it's not all that it seems. You know, because sometimes. But
also, I mean, I'm saying the same thing, but also that everyone suffers. No one, wherever your life, wherever you live, whatever your circumstances, goes through life without suffering. We will all grieve. We will all fail. We will all feel ashamed. We will all hurt. We will all have fights. We will all have these enormous difficulties that we face. Yeah. And the more that we can kind of normalize that, and like you with your book, recognize there are things that we can do and develop within ourselves to strengthen our response to that. You know, this idea that when we repeat good neural patterns of pathways, they strengthen our responses for negative and positive, so that when you develop positive habits, you have better outcomes. I'm just gonna, I can see you nodding, but was there something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I kind of, you know, the things that you do, the things that you repeat as much as possible become easier to do over time, because our brains are so incredible at picking up on something we repeat and then starting to do it for us. So, you know, the things you do automatically without really thinking are because you do it a lot. You know, sometimes you can do that sort of...
Like cleaning your teeth.
Yeah, or you can drive to work.
Hopefully.
God, I don't even know which route I took because I just wasn't thinking about it. And that's because your brain is so incredible. So all we've got to do in reality is, I mean, this is really oversimplifying it, but we've got to get through that pain barrier of making some changes and persisting at them when it's difficult and it feels like effort because we don't feel like doing it. And then if we can really put something into our routine enough times, it gets easier over time. So it's taking something that's small enough to feel manageable, where you can push through that sort of pain barrier of not feeling like doing it, and you know, repeat it enough times that your brain starts to sort of do it for you and things.
I mean, so today is Blue January, because, you know, everyone's debts and holidays are over and it's still dark in the morning and all of that. So if you were kind of thinking of small habits that you would develop to, like you're saying, develop better pathways, what kinds of things would you suggest that's in your book?
I think at this time of year, it is a bit more tough, isn't it, with the sort of lack of light and people perhaps not going out so much, so you're not socializing as much and things like that. And you know, so I think at this time of year, it's more important to go back to basics. It doesn't always have to be a kind of complex therapeutic technique. It's keeping tabs on the things that are basically our foundation for good mental health, but they're always the things that we let slide when we're not feeling so good. So for me, those are sleep, physical movement, so exercise, and good nutrition, social contact, and routine. So I think if you take those 5 things, take anyone on this earth, whoever they are, and you start messing around with those 5 things, then that person will become vulnerable to becoming physically and mentally unwell. So, and during the winter where it's darker in the morning.
And it's the balance of them, isn't it? It's not like fantabulous social connection, or, you know, running a marathon, or having a particular diet that you think is a kind of particularly kind of superpower diet. It's the balance of having a good balance on all of those things.
And exactly, and it's not about doing any of them perfectly. It's about always keeping them on your radar as the foundations for good health. You know, it's we don't need to hold each of them perfectly and then berate ourselves if we, you know, slip up. It's knowing that life will always be pulling on us and edging us away from those, and so it's just keeping tabs on what could I do today, what's one thing I could do today to improve on one of those, so that I keep on, you know, if I've had a few late nights in a row, let's focus on getting an early night tonight. And so, you know, if you're doing that, you know, you don't have to do that sleep thing perfectly every night, because life does that to us. But if you have it on your radar, then you can just tap in and think, okay, I know what I need tonight and tomorrow night, so that I can feel better in a couple of days' time, and so that you can always be pulling yourself back on track of your sort of good health, and keeping those foundations solid, so that when life throws things at us, we're more equipped to deal with things than we might otherwise be.
That's such good advice. And I want to ask you sort of personally, so with the enormous success of this book, you will be invited to every talk show, radio show, event, God knows what. And how are you going to navigate being a mum, 3 kids, life, clients, wanting to get the word out there, wanting to represent the book, wanting people to know these very important sort of mental health tools that we should all have? How are you going to navigate that?
That's exactly the question going on in my head right now. And you know, and I don't really have the answer. I'm sort of winging it like everybody else, I guess. And a bit like,
I've got one tip.
Go for it, please.
So my first tip is, don't your first reply should be, let me get back to you, let me think about it. Don't because it looks really exciting and you think, wow, gosh, I'd love to do that, because it's going on Women's Hour, but you have to get there and it's at 9 in the morning or whatever it is. So I think that is really exciting, but let me then sit down and look at my diary, look at what's going on, and then I can really decide with the context of all the other things I could do, is that the best use of my time?
Oh, that's really good advice, because I think you know, the reason that I pulled away from NHS work and started working just a one-man band private practice was so that I could work it around the children. I have 3 young children, and I wanted to be able to work in school hours and things so that we could manage.
Homeschooling, was that a nightmare, the juggle?
Yes, because I had my deadline. I had to write the book in those 5 months. And
5 months? Oh my goodness.
So it was every day, all day, you know, up here working. And my poor husband was downstairs trying to hope. And I could hear, some days I was sort of half laughing and half crying, that I could hear, okay, sit back down. Okay, sit back down then. Cut the pencil. And I just thought, oh God, how am I going out of that one? And it was because we had the deadline, you know, we had to get the book done, and we managed to get through. But again, you know, all the way along, it's just been opportunities coming up, and it feels, even though it's sort of really messed with the work family balance thing, it has such meaning for me. And I see these messages you know, that we receive from people about how the information is helping
You've
them.
really changed their lives,
and it feels huge, and so it feels like, you know, we can't stop now. But I've got to this point. We just had a sort of get the book out focus. That was our sort of end point. and now it feels like, okay, now we need to work on making this balanced and sustainable for us as a family. So yeah, that's going to be a bit of sort of work in progress on my part, I think.
And exciting, because you're going to have conversations and opportunities that, you know, I mean, of course you have an enormous following, and so you probably had a lot of that, but I think with a book, having something that is kind of solid, yeah, is a different platform to kind of represent yourself. And I don't know, has another layer. I don't know if the word is credibility, but I think it will definitely change your life.
And I think it's harder for people to, you know, the way that videos are put on, and then just lost down the feed. It's harder for people to then find the information that they need or want at that time. So, you know, it's just sort of scroll down. Whereas in the book, I wanted it. I know that most people, including myself, rarely read a book cover to cover in one go. So I wanted it to be really easy to kind of dip in and dip out and get the information in the way that it's not so easy on my feed, you know, to sort of fish out what you're looking for. So that was a sort of key part for me.
It's brilliantly clear. And then also with the summary at the end, you know, that you can sometimes just skip to the summary if you kind of know, you know, what the key points are. You can just go back to it again and again with the summary. And also those lovely maps, or, well, I don't know what you call them, the diagrams at the back,
yeah,
you know, to work out your values or your goals. Or do you want to talk? We'll just do one thing, final thing before we end, about the thing about thoughts and emotions and behavior. Do you want to tell people as a kind of,
yeah,
am I showing the right side? Because that's a really helpful tool.
Yeah, that's a kind of classic CBT formulation so cognitive behavior therapy. Is a therapy that's quite widely available, particularly in the UK, and it just has this really.
It's the most NHS. It's the most used NHS. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sort of lent itself to research, which has helped with that sort of evidence base, and so it's sort of most widely available. And that sort of basic formulation from CBT I find really helpful when you're trying to give people that hope that they can influence their own mental health. And I'll often say, okay, you can't influence your emotions directly. You know, you can't sort of wake up in the morning and say, I want to feel love and joy.
I'm gonna be happy today.
Yeah, but there are certain things that influence how we feel. And so when I draw that out, I call it the hot cross bun. And it's sort of
nice.
So each box is emotions, behavior, thoughts, and physical state. And the basic idea is that they all impact on each other. So when one moves, the others have to move too. So while we can't choose our emotions directly, we can make changes in the other boxes. So the focus of our attention, or how we treat our bodies, or what we do or don't do. When we change those, our emotions start to shift as well. So we can have this indirect impact on how we feel. And so that's
amazing.
To sort of get that bird's eye view of both a good day and a bad day. So you can do that hot cross bun formulation for a bad day. When you say, okay, I felt anxious. What was I doing just before? How was I speaking to myself in my head? What state was my body, and that kind of thing. But then you can also do it for
such a brilliant way into your awareness, isn't it? It's so simple.
Just in kind of splitting all those aspects of your experience up. But I love doing it for good days as well, because you can really learn from your good days. And you know, when I felt you know, excited and inspired and enthusiastic about my day, what was I doing differently? And what was I not doing? And where was the focus of my attention? And all that.
Nice.
So you can really then pull from the good days and look at
and build on it.
Yeah. So rather than trying not to do the things that don't work, you can also focus on doing more of the things that do work for you.
That's brilliant. By the way, Molly Ann has said, have you ever thought about doing a kids' book version to teach these things to kids? That's a really good idea.
Yeah, we're giving...
And Nicola's just ordered your book, so 500,000 and one book later.
Thank you very much. Well, did you know we've got packs that we've been making up to send out to schools, sort of probably senior schools.
Oh, wow.
My daughter took one in, she's only in the juniors, and she took one in, bless her. But I think yeah, we're giving some away to schools and things like that. And
but so if someone listening wants to get them, can they contact you through your Instagram,
on my Instagram
bio? Or...
the way that we're getting all the information is from, there's a reel on my Instagram not too long ago where my husband filled all the drawers in my kitchen with copies of the book. So you'll see it because you can't miss it. It's all these, you know, the oven's opening and it's full of books and stuff. And in the comment section on that video, people were popping in names of organizations and things that they thought were, you know, could do with some of the free books. So pop it in there, and we're going to be going through that to work out where to send them all to. But I also
Fantastic.
Okay, I wondered it because I wondered if I could get your opinion on, this is something that was often discussed around grief in the NHS and with different people from different sort of therapeutic modalities and things. And there's often a question around when someone experiences a bereavement, at what point they should seek professional help or go to a therapist. And often in the NHS there was a suggestion that, you know, you wait and you give it time to see how sort of grief progresses and things like that. But I'd love to get your opinion on that, actually.
Well, I worked in the NHS for 25 years. So what I tell you what I did, which I still actually think is right, is that at the moment of the death, in this case it was a child or a baby dying, I would write, well, sometimes I would pop up and see them, but obviously that isn't possible. But nowadays I would email the person who's bereaved and say, hello, I work in the NHS, I work on these days, you know, acknowledge their loss. When you want to come and see me, this is how to contact me. And often knowing that I'm there immediately is an enormous comfort, and it acknowledges the part the NHS played, not just in, you know, the moment of the death, but they have something that they're offering for the weeks and months and years of bereavement. And what tended to happen is that people that their first, well, it will be different in lockdown because people's kind of trauma and suffering was very surreal, and they didn't often access support when they moved, you know, at the beginning. But basically people would tend to contact me 3 months after the death, because they've had the funeral, friends and family have gone back to their life, they've had to probably go back, they've obviously gone back to work, and the numbness and the kind of shock of it begins to lessen after about 6, 8, 12 weeks. You know, the greater the unexpectedness of the death, the more complicated the death, the greater the numbness. But people tend to come and would contact me after 3 months, and then I would see them. So I don't think you can offer it too soon, is my short answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer, actually.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, and it's a really helpful answer. I can see lots of people saying, yes, you know, seek the help when you feel you need. And I think that's the aspect of that that's really important, is knowing that there's somewhere you can go as and when you feel ready to start talking. And that's, you know, that's really where we need to make those sorts of things as available as we can. And it's just so important, isn't it?
It is, and we need to end now. I could obviously talk to you for hours. You are brilliant. I'm so thrilled with what you're doing. I would literally recommend this as kind of best medicine for everyone every day. But I guess the thing I was also thinking about accessing help is preventative medicine, that doing these things may mean that you don't need to go and get help. But the thing you also say clearly in your book, you don't have to wait until you are literally suicidal to get help. Do you want to just end on what you kind of talked about around that?
Yeah, and again, I think if we're treating our mental health with the same respect that we give to our physical health, you know, you don't wait until you are feeling, you know, at your worst before you go and get some sort of medical treatment. You know, you look after your health, you try to eat well, or you try to exercise, and you try to take vitamins, or whatever it is that you do that because you're trying to keep yourself well. And it's the same with mental health. You know, we have things available to us and things that we can do in order to help ourselves stay well. And at times life throws things at us and it makes it harder. And I think when that happens, a lot of people think that they have to almost have it clear in their minds that, okay, I have diagnosable depression or anxiety or something else, therefore now I can go to the doctor and find out what's available.
Now it's legitimate. Before I was just,
yeah.
It wasn't legitimate. Somehow it has to be, like going to the doctor, I always think I'm going to be caught out, like they're going to think that I'm faking.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's the same for your mental health.
There's that real worry, isn't there, that you know, you won't.
You're going to be shamed.
And actually what people don't realize is that the professionals are there to help you work that out. You know, the diagnosis part is their job, and it's okay if you go along and there is no diagnosis, and actually what you needed was something less than professional support. That's okay. You know, it's okay to go and get advice on your health from a healthcare professional. You don't have to know that you need a certain treatment before you go. So yeah, I would say if even if, you know, therapists have a free consultation session or phone call or whatever it is, use that. You know, ask what do you think, given this situation, do you think this is right for me? And those sorts of conversations are really, really helpful.
Brilliant. Enjoy your enormous and well-deserved success, Julie, and well done. It's a wonderful book, and I'm so glad it's getting out there, and I hope it goes on getting out there in the future. And lovely to meet you.
I love this. This is I lend books everywhere, but I won't give this out because I don't want it to get lost and never come back. It's too helpful.
Oh,
so
that's really lovely.
Yeah, it's an absolute honour to meet you, Julia. I'm thrilled.
Well, I'm thrilled. Thank you so much, and I hope we'll maybe actually meet one day.
Yes, yeah, our paths will cross, if that's the.
We can do an event together. That would be really, I want to do a live event. Let's do a live event together.
Let's do it. Take care.
And you. Bye. Lots of love.
Bye, guys.
Bye.